What's up guys, War History Geek here, and welcome back to another video. Today's a special one. Today we're taking a look at the George Kai collection. Now this is a collection of artifacts that I got from a local family to me. They also live where I live. And it was actually kind of by chance. So it had just so happened that my family had purchased 2 bicycles from him beforehand, months ago. I believe that was back in March. And I came across a listing talking about a combustion shroud engine part from a P-80 jet fighter, which is going to be shown in a different video at some point. And I found that listing, and I was talking about buying that from him, and I said, if you have anything else military related, I would possibly be interested in that. So we got to some talking, and he mentioned that he had some Japanese artifacts from World War II that his father brought back from the war. So it kind of jumped into that. And you can see one of those back there, which we'll get to in a little bit. So we kind of got to talking and ended up purchasing everything that he was willing to sell to me from his father. And then after working with the family more and kind of making my intentions clear, obviously wanting to keep this collection together and use it to educate people on the history of World War II and to possibly put it into a museum, they were so generous to offer me his personal service jacket, as you see back there, as well as all of his awards. So I feel absolutely honored to have the opportunity to not only purchase those items from them and keep them preserved and to educate people, but to also have the opportunity to preserve and keep the story of their family alive by maintaining that jacket. So just for starters, I do have a couple of portrait photos here of George Kai. So here you can see this is a standalone portrait that was probably taken shortly after his enlistment in the U.S. Army Air Corps. So that's a great colored portrait there. And then we also have a portrait of him and his wife here, probably around the time that they were married, in 1945. And then we also have this portrait here of them in what I believe to be Central Park in New York City, as they took a trip to New York. Rather, they met in New York City. He was on training in New York City for technical training with the U.S. Army Air Corps, and his wife took a train and met him up in New York City. So this is a photo that they probably took together there. But for a little bit of background on George Kai. So he was born September 12th, 1919 in Cleveland. He was raised in Cleveland and lived in Cleveland most of his life. He registered with the Selective Service system on October 16th, 1940. And then not long after he had been enlisted, he married his wife Agnes Mady on April 30th, 1945. And then sometime between 1950 and 1956, he moved to Parma, Ohio. And then he lived there for the rest of his life until he passed away on June 2nd, 1989, while living in Parma, where he is now buried in Brook Park, Ohio. So that's a little bit of background on his life. So his military service. George enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Corps in Cleveland on February 5th, 1943. He eventually was shipped out on February 12th to training. And then he was assigned to the 4,000th Army Air Force's base unit for, basic Air Corps training as well as technical training until by mid-1945, and, this was after he had been in the States training for a long time. He served at Wright-Patt. He was in New York City for a short time. He was out in Arkansas for a short time as well. So he went all over the United States training until eventually, by my guess is around mid-1945, he was then transferred to Company B of the 6th Ranger Battalion, which is the unit that he served with overseas. Now, I'm not exactly sure as to why he was transferred. My guess is that he probably wasn't needed anymore in the U.S. Army Air Corps. They were probably short on infantry units, trying to go overseas. Or we'll also talk about his occupation, and that is another good guess as to why he was transferred from an Army Air Corps unit. However, he did originally enlist in the Army Air Corps with the intent of becoming a pilot, because, and as I was talking to his son, Michael Kai, who I purchased these items from, or received these items from, he was very interested in aircraft starting from a young age, and there's a lot of photographs in their family scrapbook that he took at the Cleveland Air Show over the years. So he wanted to become a pilot, but unfortunately the cards just did not fall that way for him. So eventually he was shipped out to the Pacific Theater on May 23rd, 1945, and he arrived there on June 23rd, 1945, and at least that's according to his discharge paperwork. And that is when he became involved in the final 2 months of the Battle of Luzon. Now, the Battle of Luzon is listed on his discharge paperwork, and that's all that we have. We don't know exactly what he did, or if he was there for the entire 2 months of the final 2 months of that battle, or if he had jumped in even later than that. We're not exactly sure, but all we do know is that he was at least involved in the Battle of Luzon with his unit. So, because of his mechanical experience as a furnace installer and repairman for the Siebenhaar Sheet Metal Company in Cleveland, and that, of course, that's described by his separation qualification record. He ended up, at that company ended up working on their hot air furnaces. As a result, he was assigned as a refrigeration mechanic, installing and repairing refrigeration equipment to be used as coolers for stuff like soft drinks and ice cream, as well as doing work on air conditioners, air compressors, and other mechanical equipment in that regard. Now, this is my other guess as to possibly why he was transferred from an Army Air Corps unit. He had particular mechanical civilian training from his job before he entered the service, and it's just possible that this infantry unit was in dire need of somebody who could do that work, so they ended up pulling him from a base unit and sticking him in an infantry unit. So, following the end of the war, in September of 1945, George was then transferred to occupation duty on the home islands of Japan, where he was stationed at Camp Fisher in Kyoto City. And he was there for a short time, only about 4 or 5 months. And then approximately, and I'm sorry, I should say, we're guessing he got there around early to mid-November of 1945. So he wasn't even there starting in September. So he got there pretty late into the year. And then approximately February 2nd, 1946, he departed from Japan from the Nagoya port and arrived stateside February 15th, 1946. And the reason I say approximately February 2nd is because, unfortunately, on the discharge paperwork, it says that his departure date from the Pacific Theater is unavailable. However, judging by descriptions that he wrote on the reverse of photographs in his scrapbook, I'm guessing, based on the dates that he'd written on photos from Nagoya port and, going through the Pacific Ocean, my guess is he left February 2nd, or at least some day around that day in early February. So, following all of that, he came back stateside, arrived February 15th, 1946, was discharged shortly after, and went home. Now, for his service, George received a number of medals. He received the Philippine Liberation Medal with 1 Bronze Star, the Asiatic Pacific Campaign Medal with 1 Bronze Star, the American Campaign Medal, the Army Good Conduct Medal, and the World War II Victory Medal. Now, this, again, kind of answers some questions as regards to his involvement with the Battle of Luzon, is that he, at the very least, did not see frontline combat, because he did not receive his close infantry badge. So, who knows exactly what he did, but we do know that he didn't see frontline combat, but he was, in some way, whether directly or indirectly, involved with the Battle of Luzon with the 6th Ranger Battalion. So while overseas, and this is where this came in where I first started looking at this collection, George also took home a number of war trophies, including a Type 99 Japanese Arisaka rifle, the matching bayonet, a officer's sword, which unfortunately I was not able to purchase from the family. They decided to keep that in the family for the time being, and I was able to purchase everything else. So I unfortunately don't even have any photographs of the sword, but if I do have any updates on that, I will make sure to post another video or make a post about that. And then, of course, we also have the flight jacket back here, which we'll get to later. So now with his backstory out of the way, I can kind of go over the physical artifacts that I have here. So we'll start out with some of the paperwork-related stuff. So I already showed you those portrait photos. And I'll just go over the paperwork. So this is not something that I'm going to keep. These are things that the family are letting me borrow temporarily so I can digitize them and research his service, and then I'm going to be passing them back to him. So here we have a verification of citizenship card. We have a newspaper clipping of his obituary there, which of course you can pause if you want to read any of these things. we have his certificate of baptism, and you can see here that he was baptized in Cleveland, Ohio, of course, but he was baptized following the war, which was interesting. This was not something that happened before he entered the service, because you can see it was 1948 when he was finally baptized. So this is the important military paperwork here. So this is his separation qualification record. Now the dates and stuff don't line up exactly for his service. I had to use this as a puzzle piece to fit with other pieces of information I already had. But you can see that that's all of his information in regards to what training he had and what jobs he had and approximately what ranks he had. But that's an important piece of paperwork that's fairly uncommon to have. Here you can see we have a photocopy of the records of the parish to show when he was married. And then we have several photocopies of his discharge paperwork. So here you can see this is a copy of the front of his discharge paperwork. And you can see his service number there, his rank, his unit, etc. And then even more importantly, we have the back of his discharge paperwork, which has all of his information there in regards to where he served, what awards he had, dates, vaccinations, anything you can think of. This is perfect. This is what you want when you're researching a veteran, and it's fairly uncommon to have these. So I was super blessed to be able to have this with the collection, and now I have a digital copy of it for research purposes, and now you guys can see that too. So of course, make sure to pause that so you can get all that information down. But it's a spectacular collection. It's very complete. And of course, I also have the family scrapbook, which again, they're letting me borrow. And I'm not going to flip through it because it is fairly fragile, but you can see the cover here. And again, it's super incredible resource here. I'm super happy to have the opportunity to go through it and digitize these photographs for the family as well as for myself so that I can use that for educational and research purposes. But not only are there photographs leading up to his service, all the way up to family photographs taken like the night of that he was leaving town on February 12th, but there's pictures taken when him and his girlfriend and then fiance and then wife met together when he was on leave, and of course some photographs that he took while overseas. And then also, most notably, I noticed that there are some photographs that appear to be photographs that he carried with him while he was overseas. And I can put scans of some of these up now. I'm not, at this time, I'm about halfway done scanning all the photographs and sorting them and all that and digitizing them. But hopefully by the time I get this published or at least edited, I can include some of the later photographs. But yeah, so you can already see photographs coming up on the screen. And just get a general idea of what's included in this scrapbook. You can see it's relatively thick, and unfortunately the covers did fall off. That's the way I received it. It's pretty normal for that to happen on these older scrapbooks, but overall it's still in very good condition. So I was very happy to be able to go through this scrapbook. All right, so I'm gonna move on to some of the spare awards now. So here we have 2 ribbon bars, which as you can see, they're a little out of order, but this is the spare ribbon bar sets. I received the uniform without the ribbon bars on them. I'm guessing he took them off at some point, but I was able to use photographs to kind of judge exactly where they were and what medals he was wearing. And now those are returned to the uniform, which we'll see in a little bit. Now we also have this pin here from the Army Air Corps. This is probably from his early service when he first enlisted with the Army Air Corps. And I haven't had the chance to look up exactly what this pin is now. It looks like a lapel unit pin or something like that. And I'll put text up here to explain what unit it's for or whatever. And then these 2 awards here that are not his, but were worn likely by his mother, are the blue star pins here, which would have been lapel pins or something like that, just small pieces of jewelry that people would have worn on the home front to show that they have a member of the family in the service. So that's very interesting. I'm happy to have those in the collection as well. And like I said, all of these awards, the family decided to let me have with the uniform. So I feel super blessed to have these in the collection. I'm super honored to be able to take care of these items and carry them on into the future. So let me get some of this cleaned up, and then I will move on to the uniforms and war trophies. All right, and I am back with the war trophies, and everything else is cleaned up. So let's start with the smallest and work our way up. So here we have the Type 30 Japanese bayonet. It was the standard issue bayonet for the Type 99 and Type 90 Arisaka rifles. Unfortunately, this example is missing the sheath, I'd imagine that he likely picked it up without the sheath to begin with. But overall, the bayonet is in really great condition. The bluing is very intact, and it looks like a really, really well-preserved specimen. Here you can see that it was either made at the Tokyo or, oh, I'm sorry, no, the Nagoya arsenal. And you're going to see that the rifle matches that arsenal. And it's possible that he picked it up in Nagoya at the port when he shipped out, or it's just by chance that he ended up getting a Nagoya rifle and a Nagoya bayonet, and then ended up passing through Nagoya on the way home. Now, you will see something of note here, that he has his initials engraved into the grips of the bayonet. You have the G here for George, and then the C for Kai. So, in my opinion, that adds to the story. I think that it's great that he put his initials in it because it makes it something more than just a standard bayonet, especially knowing the background. But again, some people might view that as devaluing it. But I think that that makes it a really cool piece for the collection. So I'm happy that those are there, and it contributes to the overall story. It's possible I might find a sheath for it, but for the time being, I'm just going to keep it the way that it is. So next we have the Type 99 Japanese Arisaka rifle. Okay, so as you can see, it's again a great specimen. It's very well preserved. It is missing a number of parts. As you can see, it's missing the dust cover, as most Japanese Arisakas are, as well as missing the anti-aircraft sights and the bipod, and it is missing the full cleaning rod. However, I do have part of the cleaning rod here. So I disassembled the rifle completely, took every single part out of the stock so that I could properly preserve it, you know, oil it, whatever, because based on what Michael had told me is that his father had taken some ammunition with this rifle as well, and about once a year or once every couple of years, he would take it out and he would fire a couple of rounds through it with his sons. And once he ran out of ammunition, they never saw it again. Supposedly, he did bring it out and clean it every once in a while. However, as Michael described to me, it was just a very standard cleaning. He would take the bolt out, he would clean the barrel, he'd clean inside the receiver and all that, and that was pretty much it. It was a very, very basic cleaning, and there wasn't a lot of proper preservation techniques done. So I thought it was very important to fully disassemble the rifle and clean it up and make sure that's properly oiled to preserve it into the future. And my guess is that that was the first time that this rifle was disassembled since at least 1945. Who knows how many months or years before that even it was completely disassembled down to the stocks. But that was in itself an experience all on its own. And I do have some photographs of that I might be able to find to put up on the screen. But what's interesting about this cleaning rod is that I actually found it stuck down inside the port where the cleaning rod goes inside the rifle, which is very interesting to me that it got stuck down in there. And who knows if it was George that did that and didn't understand and just threw the other part away, or if it was stuck in there from 1945 when he picked up the rifle. But this piece was likely stuck down inside the stock of the rifle since 1945 or before, which that in itself was an incredible experience to have, knowing that I was the first person to fully disassemble that rifle and see what's underneath the stocks and get this lodged cleaning rod piece out of the rifle in 75 or 80 years. So that was a very almost surreal experience, and I feel that I had a great opportunity. But I'm not going to go too much into detail on the rifle itself. There's plenty of other better videos out there that talk about that. I'm only talking about the rifle in reference to George Kai. Overall, I will go over a couple of the smaller details, though. So as you can see here on the receiver, you have the Type 99 marking. However, this is a scrubbed receiver. There's no mum, which tells us that this wasn't a battlefield pickup. This was a pickup in mainland Japan, because as many of you know, at the war's end, the mum was the symbol of the emperor, so the Japanese scrubbed the mums off of the rifles upon defeat because they no longer respected the emperor and thought that it was a disrespect to their nation to hand over these rifles with the symbol of the emperor and the monarchy still on the rifle. So this is a scrubbed receiver. My guess is that George probably traded some kind of ration, whether it was chocolate or cigarettes or whatever, for these items. We don't know exactly how he got them, but overall, it's a really great rifle. It's in really good condition. As you can see here, It's really great on the inside too. Let me flip it around here. And this is interesting here. So first of all, you can see the marking here, the serial number as well as the Nagoya Arsenal marking. Here you can see it reads 46335, which unfortunately does not match the bayonet. However, like I said, they are both from the same arsenal, which I think is very interesting. And then also notably, you can see Kai etched into the stock, which again, some might view as a devaluing of the artifact. However, I think that that adds historical value to it, to know that it was marked by the veteran who brought it home, along with the matching bayonet, to know that he got them together. So overall, great specimen. I'm super happy to have a new Milsurp rifle in my collection. And not only that, but a rifle that came from... That is the rifle. Now to talk about the sword a little bit, hopefully by the time I am editing this video, I'll at least have some pictures of the sword. If not, you know, it is what it is. But in regards to the sword, all I know is that it is a Japanese quote-unquote samurai sword. My guess is that it is likely a standard mass-produced Type 30 Japanese officer's sword. However, it could be something more rare than that, but that's my most educated guess. The way that story goes is offered these items to his son, the grandson of George, and he wasn't particularly interested in the other items. You know, he wasn't much of a gun person, or you know, with the jacket, but he was interested in the sword. So he decided to take the sword for himself, and he was no longer interested in these. So that's when he came along and decided to sell these items to me so that I can preserve them. Now, of course, at some point, if I at least get the opportunity to view the sword and get some pictures of it, you know, make documentation of it to keep with these items, that would be spectacular. Or maybe even someday in the future, I'll be able to obtain the sword for my collection to keep all of these items together and preserve the story of George Kai even a little bit more. So who knows on that? Like I said, if I do get an update on that, I will update you guys. But that's all in regards to the sword. All right, guys, so you were just watching that clip of me talking about the fact that I didn't have the sword and I wasn't sure if I was going to get the sword. That was filmed about a week ago. Well, just a couple of days ago, the family got back to me and explained that they talked it over with the family member that was still holding onto the sword, and they decided to let it go now. It was kind of determined that it was possible that he maybe just didn't have as much of a sentimental attachment as they thought, and now I am super fortunate to be able to have this in my collection. This has not only been an item on my bucket list for a while, but it's something now that goes to a grouping, and it's just an absolutely incredible piece. So unfortunately, I can't fit it all on screen at the same time, but we can take a look at the handle here. As you can see, it's in the screw is pretty much destroyed. Unfortunately, the handle was taken off to look at the tang for markings, but since this is a mass-produced Type 95 sword, there wasn't any there. So unfortunately, the screw is damaged, but other than that, this is in pretty good shape. The paint is pretty intact on the handle. You can see some of the machine work in there. Taking a look at the rest of the sheath, you can see, unfortunately, at some point, somebody took, you know, sandpaper or something and removed the surface rust from the sheath and took all of the paint with it. You can see the remains of the paint up here, and that's pretty much all the paint that remains on this sword. So let me just take it out of the sheath real quick. So you'll see that the sheath actually has a double stamp there. I have a picture up on the screen now. However, the number that we're looking at is the 81313. So you can see it above, and you can also see it stamped over the old number below. And this is an example of a field matched set. So this is an original matching set from the factory. However, it was field matched eventually later by the Japanese. Now, taking a look at the blade here, you can see that it's just in beautiful shape. There's basically no oxidation on it, and it's, like I said, just perfect. So taking a look at the handle here still, nothing much different there. And then here you can see on the blade, 81313. Now, this is a Nagoya Arsenal Type 95 NCO sword. So just a really great piece, beautiful piece. And I'm looking forward to having this on display with the rest of the collection. As I mentioned earlier, this is all going on display in a military museum. So this is going to be going in there as well. Can't wait to add that. And then also, in addition to the sword, the family also found his uniform cap. And as you can see, this is white, just infantry piping. As you can see, it's in pretty good shape. Inside's nice. It's a 7 size hat. But obviously, just a standard cap, but as part of the grouping, spectacular. I'm so happy to add this to the display, to have the complete uniform, and to the collection, as the family decided to gift this to me with the rest of the uniform. So once again, I just feel so honored to be able to have the opportunity to preserve these items, and I really can't wait to have them all on display together for the first time. All right, I'll get back to the video now. Now let's move on to the uniforms. All right, so now we're on the back end of the table here, and we're going to start with George's uniform over here first. So as you can see, it's a standard Ike jacket from the Second World War. Taking a look inside, it is a 36 regular, and again, you can see his name on the inside. George Kai ended his service as a staff sergeant. He enlisted as a private originally. Taking a look here, you can see the 6th Ranger Battalion emblem on his sleeve there, staff sergeant rank. And then you can see 1 service stripe and 1 service bar there. A little bit of fraying, but nothing too bad. If you take a look over here, you can see the infantry emblems on his collar, the collar discs. You can see the ruptured duck patch, as well as the other staff sergeant emblem there. And then, of course, you have the awards here, the ribbon bars on the chest. So you can see the Philippine Liberation, the Asiatic Pacific Campaign, the American Campaign, Army Good Conduct, and World War II Victory there on the chest that I actually just put on before this video, and I think they look pretty good. And then just taking a quick look at the inside here, you can see it's a standard interior on this jacket. You can see Kai marked there again. And then one other thing that was included was his uniform belt. So unfortunately, they didn't have anything else, the trousers, the cap, or anything, but they do have the belt, and it was down inside the pocket of the uniform jacket, and that's George Kai's personal uniform. So it's incredible to be able to have this uniform with these items still, to know the story of the man who wore them, to have all the awards, to have all the research, to have the photographs of him wearing this exact uniform. It's really an amazing experience. For any of you guys that don't have something like that in your collection, it's really just surreal to be able to have the opportunity to preserve these stories with the items that were actually there. So I hope for any of you that don't have this opportunity, if you do get that opportunity, don't miss it. You definitely want to do that. Now moving on to the Japanese flight jacket. So this is a summertime Japanese flight jacket. Now you can see there's some pretty extreme damage here to the cuff. So, I'm sorry, the collar. So this is rabbit skin collar here, and that's meant for warmth, obviously. And if you take a look on the inside here, I just unzip the front. First of all, you can see these markings here, and I'm unfortunately not sure what they mean. Maybe somebody watching can put down in the comments, but those are the markings there on the inside. And as you can see, the inside is lined first with silk on the outside. It's incredibly soft. There is some damage again, and then more rabbit skin on the inside for insulation. Now, he told me when he sold me this that when his father brought it home, when his brother were, in middle school and high school, they used to go out and wear this on the town, and it was a super cool piece that they could wear around. At some point, of course, when they grew up and moved on, the jacket was then put in an attic, and that's when this damage happened. They're unsure if it was mice or moths or whatever. However, he said that when he put it up in the attic, it was not this bad. So he was very upset that the damage had come to the uniform jacket. However, I still think it's in really good condition besides that. It's going to make an amazing display piece. Now, we also have the belt here. Nothing too much of note. Unfortunately, it's going to be pretty difficult to put it back in the uniform. As you can see, it's an enclosed belt loop that goes all the way around the back of the uniform, so it would be quite a process to try and feed it back through the jacket. So for the time being, it's just going to hang right there. At some point, I might go through the process of doing that, but for the time being, I think it's okay just the way it is. And again, it's just an incredible specimen. I'm super blessed to be able to have this in the collection. Take a look at the back one over here. Not much to see on the backs, but again, incredible collection. I'm super happy to have these with my collection now. Now, the other thing of note is I'm also working on a project right now, and I guess this will be the first kind of hint towards that. For my local historical society, I've been working over the last couple of months to build them a military museum. Now, it's focused on local history and local veterans, and these items that you saw are all going to be featured in the museum as part of the display, and at some point you will get to see that happen. That project is still in the works right now. I'm still working out videos and episodes and all that, but that series is coming very soon, so make sure to stay tuned for that. So if you guys enjoyed, make sure to hit the like button, and when you're in that area, hit the subscription button and notification bell. I know my uploads have been a little sporadic lately. Again, being in college and having work now and all that, it's just a very hard time to try and keep up with a good upload schedule. But just know that I am still collecting. The YouTube channel is still on my mind, and there's still content that's going to be made. It's just going to take me a little bit more time than it usually does. So yeah, if you guys liked this video and you want to see more, make sure to leave it down in the comments. Leave me recommendations. If you want to see more, individual veteran collections like this, I do have more I can show. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. So just let me know what you guys think. If you guys liked it, make sure to stay tuned for the upcoming videos that I have soon. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, guys. Bye.